that's the thing with goalkeepers. They can be a bit extrovert, flamboyant, and a bit crazy. And he just seemed to sort of tick all the boxes. I know where you're going.
We had a little wager because a certain Iker Casillas had started playing for Real Madrid. What he started doing was stealing players from other clubs around Romania on the pretext. It was on the pretext that they had to serve their national service with Steaua Bucharest because they were run by the army.
Oh, that's clever.
Who got 129 career goals. I don't know how many of them were free kicks, but the majority, all free kicks and penalties. So incredible stats, really. And he got 21 in a season. And I think we all love Seaman. Welcome to episode 2 of the Hand of Pod. Unfortunately, Matt and Rich can't be with us today, but I'm joined by Sweden's answer to Leighton Baines, Mr. Torben Kane.
Hello.
How you
wow,
doing?
Lucky Sweden. Good.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Not a good weekend to be an Everton fan, but a good weekend to be a United fan.
Yeah. Did you watch the game?
I didn't manage to watch all of it because we were going to various children's birthday parties, as you know.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Saw a little bit of it. Yes. So since our first episode, we've managed to nail down some more format points that we're going to be doing going forward. And today we'll be going through the top 100 footballers of all time. With starting at number 100 today, and that's from a list done last year by 442 magazine. But before that, I wanted to start by talking about goalkeepers, and each week we'll go through a different position. But today we're going to talk about goalkeepers, and there's one goalkeeper I thought we'd start with, who I've always had a soft spot for, and it's a reason that involves both of us. When we were, I think we were about 18 years old.
I know where you're going.
We had a little wager because a certain Iker Casillas had started playing for Real Madrid, and I think he just won his first cap for Spain. And I was talking to you about him, and how good he was, and he got his first cap for Spain at like 18 years old. And I said he could go on and get 125 caps for Spain. I said he's Real Madrid's number one. He's Spain's number one now. He'll get 125 caps for Spain. And you said, "I'll bet you £1,000 he doesn't."
Yeah, a second ago you said a small wager, and it was the biggest wager that I've probably ever had, especially at that age.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, at that age, it was like, well, if he does get 1,000, I think we considered it a small wager at that age, because we thought if he does get 125 caps, we'll be about 35, and £1,000 would be nothing to us by then.
Yeah. How wrong we were, and yeah, into our mid 30s, and he came. I mean, quite early on in our 30s. I think he reached the 125 marks on caps for Spain, and which I was very happy to constantly keep you up to date on how many caps he's got. And during that time, we'd adjusted the bet a bit, hadn't we? Because it wasn't looking. It was just wasn't looking favourable for me. I think that's probably my encouragement of adjusting the bet.
And I kind of thought, I can't really take £1,000 in cash off you. I thought it seemed a bit harsh. So we agreed that we would have to spend the £1,000 on a night out that involved both of us. So basically, we just spent, whoever lost would spend £1,000 on a night out, and like on both of us. And so when he got the 125 caps, shortly after we found out we were going to Las Vegas on a stag do,
and I think you suggested it. You said, I'm going to come good on that bet, and spent $1,000 it was on a fantastic night out in Vegas that we had.
Yeah, worth every penny.
Yeah, we can't go into any further details about that night, but
it's all above board.
All above board.
I think it involved a bit of gambling at the table. So actually, not only did I change the bet to being a sort of sharing the so I'm only sort of down technically 500, but I converted it into dollars as well, so I saved an extra 10 or 15%. So
yeah,
probably owe you a little bit.
Well, I think we won a few quid as well. Like because with the money we spent on the night out, we put a few quid down on the roulette table, and end up getting a bit of money back. So yeah, but I think it was well worth the
20-year bet. Yeah, good old Iker Casillas.
Casillas ended up being one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. He's definitely up there. Won 5 La Ligas with Madrid, 3 Champions Leagues, won the World Cup in 2010 with Spain, and 2 Euros in 2008 and 2012.
And I think that's part of the problem for that bet. At the time, Spain were okay, but they weren't that good. Yeah. And then, by doing so well in all of those tournaments, he had loads of extra games to play. So it kind of by them becoming better meant that bet was more more likely to come in.
That's good. It's a good point. You think three tournaments in a row, he's played every game possible.
Yeah,
and but he's actually got the most clean sheets in Champions League history as well. It's probably one of the biggest claims to his name. But yeah, I'd always kind of followed his career quite closely. Had a bit of a soft spot for him, and he was a great keeper, great shot stopper. But in researching keepers, I was kind of going back through some of the most kind of interesting keepers, and there's loads of big personalities. And I actually put a thing out on my Instagram saying who's people's favourite keepers of all time, and there was a couple of interesting ones I got back, and a guy I hadn't really heard of. I kind of semi-recognised his name, but Rogério Ceni. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Never heard of him. Well, I probably have, but I can't recall it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so he's the highest scoring goalkeeper of all time.
Yes. Goalkeepers that score goals.
Yeah, played pretty much his entire career at Sao Paulo, and was kind of Brazil's second goalkeeper for quite a while. In the early 2000s, got a few caps, but he scored 129 career goals.
Wow, that's ridiculous. And how does that work?
It's all free kicks and penalties. And I went through and watched some of the highlights, and he's just an insanely good free kick taker.
But
it looks hilarious.
But even I was just going to say, even the likes of, I don't know, Beckham or Roberto Carlos, they probably haven't got that many goals from free kicks, have they? I mean, that's an obscene amount. And penalties as well. I mean, that's risky. From a free kick, well, both really. Although from a penalty, if it's saved or comes off the bar, you've got to really sprint back if you're a goalkeeper taking it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know how many free kicks Beckham scored, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar amount.
Do you think? Off the top of my head, I'd expect it to be below 50, below 30 even. Probably, I don't know.
Well, I thought his Premier League record was about 40 or 50.
Right. Okay.
So
I can remember
I'm live Googling.
Nice. You do that. Do you want me to do some padding?
65.
Oh, there you go. I was way off.
Yeah. So, well, no, you were closer than me, because I was thinking he scored as many as Rogério Ceni, who got 129 career goals. I don't know how many of them were free kicks, but the majority, all free kicks and penalties. So, incredible stats, really. And he got 21 in a season.
That's outrageous. I mean, that sounds like a good YouTube rabbit hole, wormhole, whatever you want to call it, to go down and watch all of those.
Yeah, I did go down a bit of a YouTube rabbit hole looking into this guy.
Yeah.
Because that season he scored 21 in a season. It was there was one YouTube I saw, and it was listing the strikers, the like world class strikers that he scored more goals than that season, and there's some big names in there.
Gilbert in I can't remember who he played for. Was it Colombia? No, not Colombia. Peru, maybe.
Paraguay.
There you go.
Yes,
he was South American, and he used to take free kicks as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that flamboyant, you get. That's the thing with goalkeepers. They can be a bit extrovert, flamboyant, and a bit crazy. And he just seemed to sort of tick all the boxes. Plus, he would go up, take good free kicks. And he must have got quite a few in his time.
Yeah,
he was quite legendary for it, wasn't he?
Looked at his stats. He got 67 career goals. He's actually second on the list to Rogerio Ceni. So Ceni's a mile ahead. He had eight international goals though for Paraguay, and he once scored a hat trick.
No way.
Yes,
no way.
Amazing.
Wow.
But he was one of my favourite.
YouTube that later.
Yeah. He was one of my favourite keepers. Gilbert growing up, and he was actually, as well as taking the free kicks, he was one of the best keepers in the world in his day. Yeah. And it was keepers like him, Gheorghe Campos for Mexico. I don't know if you remember him. He designed his own kits. He was really short. I think he was about 5'10" or something. And he was he used to come miles out of the box, and he sometimes played up front as well, Gheorghe Campos, and he had 35 career goals, Gheorghe Campos. Him, and then René Higuita for Colombia.
Yes, scorpion kick.
Did the scorpion kick famously at Wembley against England in a friendly, and it was over Jamie Carragher's head. He did it.
Just incredible.
Which makes it all the better. And he was a goal scoring keeper as well. 43 career goals. Yeah, took penalties basically. Took a lot of penalties.
That's just outrageous. That's probably more than some attacking midfielders in their career.
It's incredible.
Just madness.
But all these keepers, I used to really be excited about seeing them like at World Cups because they kind of had such big personalities, and none of them played in England. So before YouTube and Sky and things like that were in the early 90s, the only time we'd get to see them was at a World Cup. Yeah. And especially, I think USA 94 was big for me because we weren't there. All these things were much bigger for me to see, like Gheorghe Campos, and I'd be more excited about them because I didn't have England to be excited about. So I was like looking forward to seeing what kit Gheorghe Campos has got and how if he was going to get to go up front at all during the game. But what they all had in common is they're actually ahead of their time for keepers. You all thought they were crazy. Like Higuita's nickname was the Madman, and but they used to come miles out of their goal, which is basically what keepers do now.
Didn't Higuita?
They're like sweeper keepers.
Yeah, that is so true. And that Pep Guardiola was quite big on that. One of the first to sort of get them to look for goalkeepers that could play with their feet. Actually, I say that there's lots of others before him, but that's it's a big part of what they do. That sweeper keeper. Didn't Higuita? Didn't he? He had. There's two other things that I remember with him. Didn't he have a huge hairdo as well?
Yeah, massive,
really long, curly hair. Yeah,
really long curls, like Soul Glow. I think he probably was used.
Yes, yeah. And didn't he get? Didn't he? Wasn't he messing around? He came far too far out of his goal during one of the World Cups and gave it away. Just got tackled.
Italia 90 did that. Yeah, was it? It was his fault for one of the. I think it was maybe against Cameroon or something. He did that, but yeah, and he was. That's the thing. They were just known for. Everyone thought they were just crazy, but then they're actually ahead of their time doing what they were doing because a lot of keepers then have taken it on, but just got better at it basically rather than just being mental. But yeah, and I think going back in history, there was. He had keepers like Gordon Banks. Everyone remembers the save against Pele in in the World Cup in 1970. Sepp Maier for Germany was a really big name in goalkeeping back then. Won the World Cup, and Dino Zoff for Italy. He once came second in the Ballon d'Or, but I think Lev Yashin is probably the most famous vintage goalkeeper. He's the only goalkeeper to ever have won the Ballon d'Or, the Russian, and spent his entire career at Dynamo Moscow. But and I was reading up on him. Apparently, he was very ahead of his time. Used to come out and close down strikers, which keepers didn't really do at the time. They all stayed on their line and just waited for the ball, and he used to run out. Between 1950 to 1970, he kept 270 clean sheets and saved over 150 penalties, which is pretty impressive.
150 penalties?
Saved 150 penalties in 20 years, yeah. And
that's just incredible that he won the Ballon d'Or as well.
Won the Ballon d'Or, yeah.
That good, especially probably more so back then when, I don't know, maybe was as much football televised. And so, it'd be quite easy for, you'd see the stats. You'd read in the paper who scored, who did this. But you wouldn't necessarily see, all the great saves or close downs or catches or whatever a keeper would make. But you'd see whoever had scored so many goals.
Yeah.
And so
he must have been a real big deal. But he was, he won the Euros in 1960 with USSR. So... that was kind of his biggest achievement with the team, basically. But going on from there, the keepers I remember from the 90s, really. I mean, for United, we had Schmeichel and Van der Sar in the Fergie era, and it felt like those were the only times, like in between them, were the dark days for Fergie. So the success with Fergie, it came when he signed Schmeichel, along with like Cantona and that, but Schmeichel came in and like made a big difference. And then when Schmeichel left, it wasn't until we managed to find Van der Sar between the sticks that he was able to kind of get the success, and that momentum built up back again. But Schmeichel was kind of known for the big star jump, wasn't he, closing down?
Yes. Yeah, he was. If you're 1-on-1 with him as a striker, you wouldn't really fancy your chances, would you? Big, imposing, and just he was a solid shot stopper. Fabian Barthez, was he during the Fergie era as well, wasn't he?
He did pretty well for us. Yeah, he was one of the better ones, but he was another one that he would run out miles, and he was tiny, wasn't he? The other kind of like best known keeper, I think, as being one of the best keepers from that era was Oliver Kahn for Germany. He had a very long, successful career in Germany, but the kind of German keeper that took over from him was Manuel Neuer. He kind of took the sweeper keeper to the next level. Like, it was like we've talked about this sweeper keeper in these other keepers, but Manuel Neuer kind of made it a profession. And then most of the modern keepers copied Manuel Neuer in what he's doing. But he's obviously won the World Cup 2014 with Germany. He's won 2 Champions League with Bayern, 11 Bundesligas, most clean sheets in the Bundesliga. Currently on 224, and he's had the most clean sheets in a single season with 21 clean sheets. This is pretty incredible.
That's phenomenal. I mean, it must be half their games or more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Bayern Munich, there's a bigger difference between them and most of the rest of the division compared to the Premier League, where it's probably a bit more competitive. But still, that's outrageous. Out of that 200, the total that he's got, how many games? Can you remember how many appearances?
No, I can't remember. But
600-700. I mean, it's probably like 1 in 2, 1 in 3, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. Maybe 1 in 3. Yeah, pretty incredible. But I don't know where you stand on who you consider the best goalkeeper of all time.
That's a big question. I don't know. I mean, we talked about some big names. I mean, I mean, growing up as an England fan, England's number one has always been, a big talked about position. And over the years, we've had some very long-standing keepers over the years that we've been watching England. Anyway, obviously Peter Shilton, he had the cap record for a very long time, didn't he?
Yeah.
And was solid. And other England.
Not very good at saving penalties, though.
No, no. He just seemed a bit. Looking back, he just sort of seemed a bit bigger or slower. I don't know. They're a lot more sort of lean nowadays, aren't they?
And I think we all love Seaman growing up.
Yeah, exactly. That was going to be another one. Good memories of watching him with England. Although, sadly, that a couple of bad memories as well. The Ronaldinho lob.
Yeah.
And others.
Yeah.
For me, best keeper of all time.
Yeah.
Difficult. Very difficult.
For me, it has to be Buffon.
Yes.
We haven't talked about him yet, but I probably was already on the side of Buffon. I'd say him, Casillas, Neuer, and throw in Lev Yashin. But I obviously never saw Yashin play. But from what I've read up on him, he's got to be up there. But I'd say though they're the kind of clear standouts. And but going through Buffon's career, he made his debut 17 years old in 1995 for Parma. And he got thrown in. I think their keeper got injured, and he got thrown in against Milan, who are the current champions, and had Baggio and George Weah, who was the current Ballon d'Or winner, up front. And they drew
the deep end.
Yeah, and they drew 0-0, so he kept a clean sheet first ever game. But that Parma team, he was straight in. So I looked at the lineup in that game. He had Zola, Stoichkov, Espria, Cannavaro, Dino Baggio, Fernando Couto, Sensini. It was an incredible team. Yeah,
wow.
Ridiculous team.
What a lineup.
He's won Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year 9 times. He's the only goalkeeper ever to win Serie A Player of the Year. He's the most internationally capped goalkeeper of all time, with 176 caps for Italy.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to beat, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the most capped Italian player of all time. And he's got the most appearances as captain for Italy. He's the only ever goalkeeper to win the UEFA Club Footballer of the Year. And he was runner-up for the Ballon d'Or in 2006, which... But I was reading about. I looked at that year, and it was a year that Cannavaro won. I don't know if you remember.
So that's the year they won the World Cup.
Yeah, they won the World Cup, and it was also the year that Juventus got done and relegated, and Buffon stayed with Juventus, and it was halfway through the season they got sent down. Buffon stayed, and Cannavaro went to Madrid. And a lot of people think if Buffon had left and gone to another club and finished out the season at the top, he would have actually won that Ballon d'Or. And Cannavaro was the only one because he didn't go down to Serie B with Juventus. Yeah, he didn't jump ship.
That loyalty just speaks volumes, doesn't it? But he just played it. I mean, he's a good-looking chap, but he just played with a class. Short sleeves as well. He always had short sleeves, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked the part, Buffon.
He just looked the part.
Yeah. And the fact he just finished his career last year, having gone to Parma when they've just gone down to try and get them back up again.
Parma, didn't he?
Gone back to Parma, playing at such in his 40s, and. But he won. He's won 10 Serie A's with Juventus, and he won Serie B with Juventus as well. He's got 6 Coppa Italias. He won the UEFA Cup with Parma. He never won the Champions League with Juventus. Runner-up 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's where Neuer would probably have. I guess
Yeah,
Neuer's
Neuer's 2 Champions Leagues. Yeah,
yeah.
Casillas 3. But he won Ligue 1 with Paris Saint-Germain. Came runner-up in the Euros with Italy in 2012, and obviously won the World Cup, like we said, in 2006. And in that World Cup, he got 5 clean sheets.
Wow, that's
So
out of probably what, 8 or 9 games?
Seven. They only played 7 games.
Is that it?
And he let in 2 goals.
That's a pretty good stat.
Insane. What a tournament.
You can't really argue with it. When you lay it down like that, you can't really argue with all that.
Yeah. You can see where Italy's strength lied in that World Cup. Yeah. But for me, when I kind of read all that, his career, his stats, and knowing what a player he was, like he's got to be the greatest goalkeeper of all time for me. Hands down.
Yeah, he's got to be up there. One that we haven't mentioned, though, and it'd be remiss of me not to chuck in a Swedish goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So, can you name any Swedish goalkeepers? Is there any that come to mind? Mid-90s.
Yeah, who's the one in the bald guy? I forgot his name.
That's it.
In '94, when you had the
Thomas
shirt
Ravelli.
with all the squares. Ravelli, that's it. Yes.
That's it. And Sweden got to the came third in the World Up that year. I think.
Well, I will actually mention that when we start talking about the next section. It comes up.
There you go. Good link.
Good link. Because the player we're talking about, Gheorghe Hagi, he played in that World Cup for Romania, and they got knocked out by Sweden on penalties with Thomas Ravelli, the hero.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
that's a perfect link.
Perfect link. It's like we wrote this.
I think people will be able to tell that we haven't.
I mean, I'll say his name, Gheorghe Hagi. I think we all...
Have you pronounced it correctly?
Yeah, I think growing up we all called him Gheorghe Hagi. He's an absolute 90s legend, but he's number 100 on the top 100 list. And he's the greatest ever Romanian footballer, nicknamed the Maradona of the Carpathians, or Comandante, the commander, by the Galatasaray fans. But the Romanians simply called him Regele, the king. He was a playmaker known for his dribbling, technique, vision, passing, and finishing. Absolute genius of a free kick taker. I was watching some YouTube highlights of Hagi, and he scored some belters from miles out as well. Not just free kicks, just so many goals from really far away, and some famous ones as well. He got 125 caps for Romania, played in 3 World Cups, 3 Euros. He's Romania's joint leading goal scorer with 35 goals alongside Adrian Mutu. But he started at a club called Farul Constanta, and in Romania. And it was at a time in Romania where there's a lot of the leagues were amateur, but then this was kind of a youth team he was playing for. And he played for another couple of clubs in Romania. But it wasn't until he was 22 that he signed for a top team in Steaua Bucharest. He was playing in the top division. But at the time, Bucharest were run by the Romanian army, and it was a dictatorship, like communism in Romania, and so Dynamo Bucharest were the strongest team in Romania for many years in the 60s and 70s, and they were run by the secret police. Steaua Bucharest,
wow.
run by the army. And in 1983, the son of the Romanian dictator took over Steaua Bucharest. And what he started doing was stealing players from other clubs around Romania on the pretext...
like kidnapping?
Well, it was on the pretext that they had to serve their national service with Steaua Bucharest because they were run by the army.
Oh, that's clever.
So
that's clever.
He's not paying them any money. He's just going to the clubs and saying... you have to come to us now because you need to do your national service. So all the clubs would just lose their best players to Steaua, and they had no chance. So Steaua Bucharest won the next 5 league titles after he took over, and went and set a world record with 116 games unbeaten.
Wow.
They won the 1986 European Cup final, beating Barcelona in the final on penalties, and then the following season they signed Hagi. Well, they took Hagi for a 1-game trial from his club, and he was supposed to go back to his club because they just took him for a game, and the game he played in was the Super Cup final after they won the European Cup against Dynamo Kiev.
Wow.
Where Hagi scored the winning goal in a 1-0 victory, scored a free kick, and Bucharest just said to his club, "Yeah, we're keeping him. He's not going back." They don't pay him. They're just like, "No, he's ours now." Yeah. So he ended up.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, he ended up with Steaua Bucharest, reached the European Cup final again in 1989, losing to one of their classic Milan sides. And he was like, you couldn't actually leave Romania at that time. They wouldn't, like, the dictatorship wouldn't let Romanian players leave. So he didn't have the option of going anywhere. And no, it was kind of, I think it was quite common across Eastern Europe and Russia. That's why, like we talked about Lev Yashin playing his entire career at Dynamo Moscow. I'd imagine he didn't have the option of going to a different European club. So all these Eastern European players would rarely go and play outside of their countries. They play there, and there was a revolution in Romania in 1989, and after that, players were then allowed to go and play abroad after the revolution in 1989. And Hagi was probably like top of the list for a lot of European clubs, and he ended up signing for Real Madrid, but not until he played the World Cup in Italy in 1990, where Romania got to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, they were good through the 90s.
Yeah, they were, and but he actually, like, he was nicknamed the Maradona of the Carpathians. And you can see why when you looked at him, and he was quite short. I think 5'8", really good at really strong, good at using his body, credible with the ball control and dribbling, and like you could see the comparisons there with Maradona. And he actually played against Maradona in Italia '90 in the group stage, I think, and then he drew 1-1. So they went through the quarters, but they lost on penalties to Ireland. Funnily enough,
so they did, yeah. Who would that have been? Ray Houghton, or was that a bit later on?
It was Jackie Charlton, wasn't it, in charge?
Yeah,
and, but yeah, so he was only at Madrid for 2 years, and he showed glimpses of magic. But in Madrid, we're going through a bit of a transition period. Went through a few managers, and he was in and out of the team, and ended up requesting a transfer and. Went to Brescia in Serie A. And sounds like a strange club, but Brescia had a Romanian manager, and Florin Răducoiu played for them. Don't know if that name rings a bell. Another Romanian great.
It does ring a bell. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it does ring a bell. Yeah, there's a few. A few players, wasn't there? But
can you hear me?
Yeah, mid through the early to mid 90s.
Yes, and he was a bit of a star for Brescia, but they got relegated the season he joined, and he stayed with them. Like we were talking about Buffon and the type of man he was. He stayed with Brescia and got them back into Serie A the following season. But then Barcelona came calling for him, and he went there, and he went to Barcelona in 1994, but not before he played in another World Cup, USA '94, and that was kind of his coming of age tournament. So obviously, he was quite worldly known before that, for what he's done, but that was kind of his tournament, and I watched the highlights from like his highlights from '94, and it really was like his tournament. If Sweden hadn't have beaten them on penalties, Romania had gone through to the semis, I think he would have been talked about so much more than he was. But I think because there were so many upsets in that World Cup, Bulgaria did pretty well as well, and obviously Sweden, that he was kind of overshadowed a little bit. But he scored against Colombia in the group stage with a kind of audacious chip and in a 3-1 win. And I looked at this. It was a weird goal. He was kind of miles out on the left wing, and it looked kind of like a cross, but it went. It was like floated right over the keeper and dropped in the kind of far right hand corner. Incredible goal.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
probably was a cross.
I don't think it
claim
was
that it was a shot.
It was. If it was awful. It was miles away from anyone. But it just the way he kind of struck it. It was like it wasn't like he was trying to hit it hard. So it was more kind of lobby. Yeah, right. Floated it over.
Almost
it was
floated
so far
it
away.
over him.
And he scored against Switzerland in the match they lost in the group stages, and then against they played in the final game of the groups against USA, the home team, and he was kind of man of the match in that one, where they won 1-0 and progressed to face Argentina again in the round of 16. And when you look at their team, so you kind of recognise, like when I look at Romania now, I kind of don't really know a lot of their players. But there were so many of that team that were kind of household names by the time they retired, at least. Petrescu, Prodan, Popescu, Dimitrescu, Radicioiu, who we've mentioned already. And Romania, with that team, beat Argentina 3-2, with Hagi scoring the winner. And it was
wow.
It was a decent Argentinian team as well, like Batistuta, Ortega, Simeone, some great names in there. And that game was known as one of the best games in World Cup history. That Romania-Argentina game is such a good game, and the quarter final against Sweden was pretty good as well. You probably remember that. Were you kind of a big Sweden fan during that World Cup without England there?
Well, certainly was in that World Cup. Didn't have much choice. I mean, I always follow them. Obviously, being half Swedish, I'll always look to England's fixture list and results before I'd look to Sweden's. But I absolutely do follow them, and over the years, they've punched above their weight. I think when it comes to getting into tournaments and competing. So. Yeah, but in that World Cup, absolutely, and they had a few big names as well there. So, they
Brolin,
were quite
Darlin, Brolin.
Yes. England and Sweden have had their matchups over the years, and loyalty has been a bit torn. England have generally got results more than they've lost. But that now you're talking about what's that? 92.
94 World Cup.
Would it be?
Yeah, 94 World Cup.
94, no, the Brolin.
Oh, Brolin, Darlin. Yeah,
Brolin
that was Euro 92, wasn't it? Yeah. Classic. But this game was 2-2, quarter final, and Sweden won it on penalties. But the keeper, like you say, Ravelli, he saved against Dan Petrescu. Hagi scored in the shootout, but Dan Petrescu missed. I think Sweden scored all their pens, and that was it. But then Hagi went to Barcelona after that, but unfortunately, he did have some really amazing performances at Barcelona. He was kind of famous for there, but he struggled with injury quite a lot, and was only there for 2 seasons, and then went to Galatasaray, and he was 31 when he went to Galatasaray, and he actually finished his career there, but he became an absolute Galatasaray legend. Massive player for them, and I think they still, like Galatasaray fans, will still see him as their greatest ever, perhaps. And won the UEFA Cup with them in 2000. And you might remember You might remember the game. They beat Arsenal in the final.
Oh, okay. Off the top of my head, I can't remember that.
Well, one of the famous Arsenal teams, and Seaman was in goal for that.
Where Seaman that isn't the one where he got lobbed by the ex-Spurs.
No, that was I think that was a Cup Winners' Cup. They did that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the UEFA Cup, but they lost it on penalties. Arsenal did. Galatasaray won on penalties. Hagi actually got sent off in extra time for punching Tony Adams.
Wow.
But he was quite a feisty player.
How tall is he? Yeah, and at 5'8", taking on Tony Adams, that's a brave little guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was feisty, but yeah, and they ended up, it was because the two Sukas were playing for either team. Davor Suka came on for Arsenal, and Hakan Suka was playing for Galatasaray. And
yes,
they
were good players as well, weren't they?
Hakan Suka scored in the penalty shootout, and Davor Suka missed, and Arsenal lost.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's an uncomfortable Christmas, isn't
it? He became this kind of Galatasaray legend, and I think we were talking about it last week how you don't see as many like legendary players at smaller clubs, and apart from when they're in the twilight of their careers a lot of the time. So the fact you'd be playing Galatasaray in Europe, and Gheorghe Hagi was playing for them, and he was at one of the best players in the world was exciting.
Well, it's just amazing how it's impossible to quantify, but by the sounds of it, the time at Steaua Bucharest, and then Romania, and then also Galatasaray, he was a fundamental part of the success of smaller teams doing very well at tournaments and at club level. And how one player can inspire a team to perform perhaps above what their standing historically would sort of show. So there's been a lot of players like that, I suppose, over the years. Maradona at Napoli as well. He stayed there a long time, loyal servant. A single player can lift the performance of a team. A lesser. Historically, a lesser team such as Steaua Bucharest or Romania in the tournaments they did with him playing Galatasaray, and how they can, I guess, sort of build a team around one or two excellent players to sort of really raise the performance of the club to outperform their what they've done historically.
Yeah. Well, post football. I mean, actually, before that, that competition, you might remember something else from that competition in Galatasaray was the semi-final before they faced Arsenal in the final. Was they played Leeds when the two Leeds fans got stabbed and died in Galatasaray in Istanbul, which I think I'm sure there was something about it recently. It was like the anniversary of it recently. I don't know, it must have been 20-year anniversary or something, that I remember a lot of talk about it. The two Leeds fans that died, and they were still talked about a lot of Leeds. But yeah, I think that's still quite a daunting place to go, Istanbul, Galatasaray.
Yeah, well, there's been Liverpool had issues there, didn't they? During the Liverpool fans did during the Champions League final. Yeah, it's just been, like I say, a daunting place to go, dangerous place.
And it was only the other night that two Brighton fans got stabbed away to Roma. I don't know if you heard of that.
I didn't actually.
They didn't die, and I saw a video actually of one of the guys that got stabbed. He made the game, and all the Brighton fans, when he turned up, all the Brighton fans started singing his name.
Wow.
So he might be sat there going, "No, it was worth it."
Yeah. Oh God, that's
horrible.
Yeah, that's pretty dark. That just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Shouldn't happen.
But yeah, post football, he actually formed his own club in Romania. Hagi did, called Viitorul Constanta, which if you remember all the way back, his youth team he played for was Ferrol Constanta. So literally where it all began. And he brought them up through the leagues and managed them to the top division league title in 2017.
No way.
And it's all based around a big youth system, like a huge youth system for Romania, and brought through his son Gheorghe Hagi, who he then sold to Rangers.
Really?
Yeah, now big player for Rangers, Gheorghe Hagi. But yeah, incredible, really, because he's obviously just such a Romanian legend, and went back to his roots. Incredible
Nice,
career.
That's it. Yeah, and then doing it all over again as a manager, giving back, but starting from the bottom and going all the way up. There can't be too many people that have created a team and done that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was nice when I kind of thought I'm going to start on the top 100, and saw that it was Hagi at number 100. I was quite happy about that, because it was someone that I really remember a lot about and thought would be quite interesting to look into, and he was. So I was quite happy with that.
Yeah, it's quite all the information and that history. That's quite it's quite an interesting, incredible backstory, really, isn't it? That you've seen a player, you've seen him score the goals, you've heard the name, but so much more to the story. And interestingly, looking back at what you were saying about those the 2 years at Real Madrid, the 2 years at Barcelona, both, it seems, kind of not as successful as the rest of the years everywhere else. So had he not had those injuries, could he have been higher than the top one, higher than 100 in the list had he had that time at Barcelona or Real Madrid, where whether he'd had the form and the luck that he did elsewhere.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, it's like Stoichkov is probably rated higher than him, and a lot of that will be because of his time at Real Madrid.
Yeah,
and how and
but
the
player
impact
to player, was he a better player?
Yeah,
you could argue it.
Yeah, I'd rate them quite closely. Been a pleasure, and we'll be back next time with number 99 on the top 100s list, and we'll be talking about left backs.
Nice. Well, that's a position close to my heart.
Yes, exactly.
Are we allowed to know who is number 99 in the list?
Yes, it was. I think it's. It doesn't have to be a surprise. I think it was without looking up again. It was Mario Kempes, Argentinian forward. But I will let me just double check that.
Kempes. I'll be honest. I don't know. Is that
Mario Kempes?
When did he play?
70s.
Okay.
In the 70s. So a little bit of a different era to discuss. Won the World Cup with Argentina in 1978.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I don't know too much about him. So
played for Valencia. So he was because Maradona didn't play in that World Cup. He was basically the star of that World Cup.
Right. When did Maradona start playing for? Even as early 80s?
He started playing in the 70s, and he was. I think he was a teenager, and he'd been capped for Argentina before that World Cup. And he always calls it. He always called it the World Cup that he was robbed of, the 1978 World Cup, because he thought he should be in the squad. So yeah, it's quite interesting that he didn't, because if you think about it, he was robbed of it. So 78, he could have had that World Cup. 86, they obviously won, and then 1990, he also felt he was robbed of that World Cup because they were in the final.
Banned? Oh no,
in the final in Italia 90 against Germany, and they just hacked him down, and all the Italians were against him. He got booed. Their national anthem got booed, and all this, and he's just, very much like he got got that World Cup taken away from him. So he could have easily, in another dimension, had 3 World Cups to his name, just like Pele. Thanks for listening to The Hand of Pod. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.